it's Chi-Town, it's Bears on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the likes.
Insider hints that Ryan Poles may have a shot at this blockbuster trade. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Bears fans, make sure you also do me a huge favor by also hitting the like button on today's episode of Keek on the Mic. So, Bears fans, if there is one thing that we have learned ever since Ryan Poles has become the GM of the Chicago Bears, is that he is always looking for ways to improve this roster to compete at a high level. Once again, even though it didn't work out in 2022, he traded for wide receiver Chase Claypool. He dealt for Montez Sweat last season. And then, of course, he acquired Darrell Taylor as well right before the start of the season. And Darrell Taylor looked really good in his Bears debut against the Tennessee Titans. All in all, we all know that Ryan Poles is always going to be aggressive to improve this football team. And it seems like he may have the opportunity to do it again, maybe when the trade deadline comes closer this season. Jeff Hughes of the Bears blog is known for having strong connections around the league. So that's why when he posts on X, most of the time I tend to listen, even though he's not always going to be correct in his assumptions or his opinions. Most of the time I listen because I do know that he has strong connections around the league. This is why it was so interesting when he dropped this little bombshell that the Cleveland Browns could make superstar pass rusher Myles Garrett available if their season spirals out of control over the next couple of weeks. Him and Robert Smith kind of had a back and forth after the Cleveland Browns blowout loss to the Dallas Cowboys. And Jeff Hughes of the Bears blog was just basically responding to Robert Smith's X post. And he said, what if the Browns season collapsed? And Robert Smith basically just replied to Jeff Hughes and said, hey, if Andrew Berry, the Browns GM, actually answers that phone call, he will get fired. And then Jeff Hughes of the Bears blog went on to respond with, Bears offer them 2 ones, and I think they consider it. They are going to need a full reset next year if this collapses. Jeff Hughes of the Bears blog is responding to this like he already has an idea of what's going on inside NFL circles, what's going on inside the Cleveland Browns organization. I know that's not most likely a case, but once again, Jeff Hughes has a really good reputation of kind of knowing what's going on around the league, what's going on within league circles as well. But when you look at a guy like Myles Garrett, Bears fans, first and foremost, I don't think this is going to happen whatsoever, but it's a cool dream to think about of him and Montez Sweat being paired on the same defensive line. When you look at a guy like Myles Garrett, he's still one of the best defensive players in the National Football League. He is actually the reigning defensive player of the year, still only 28 years old. When you look what he was able to do last season, he had 42 total tackles, 17 tackles for loss, 14 sacks, 30 quarterback hits, 4 forced fumbles. He's a 5-time All-Pro as well. Once again, there's a reason why he was the reigning defensive player of the year and why he's still one of the best defensive players in the National Football League. Myles Garrett did sign a 5-year, $125 million contract with the Cleveland Browns in 2020. He's still going to be under contract for the next 2 years. So if Ryan Poles did decide to make a move like this for Myles Garrett, the Bears would have some decent control for the next 2 years, and they would have a cap hit of $20 million. So that's definitely something that the Chicago Bears could afford if they did decide to make a move like this for Myles Garrett at the trade deadline. But all in all, I think Ryan Poles, the biggest thing here is that he's not going to want to give up 2 first-round picks for a guy that's 28 years old. I understand that Myles Garrett is still technically in his prime. He still has a lot of good football ahead of him, and I do understand that adding a guy like Myles Garrett would be the cherry on top for the Chicago Bears and not only propel this defense to be probably a certified top 5 defense with Myles Garrett and Montez Sweat on the same defensive line, but it would definitely propel the Chicago Bears in a bigger conversation of basically Super Bowl or bust at that point. But I do know personally that Ryan Poles is very stingy or doesn't really want to give up his first round picks. He wants to be able to build through the NFL draft with those first round picks. When you look at the Chicago Bears roster currently and how it stands, the Chicago Bears have bigger areas of need in regard to maybe the offensive line at the center position or maybe even the right guard position as well. And then, of course, when you look at the additions that they made over the offseason, especially when you're looking at the addition of Darrell Taylor. He has been a very pleasant surprise for the Chicago Bears. If he can continue to produce how he produced against the Tennessee Titans, I don't see any reason why Ryan Poles would go out and trade 2 first-round picks for another edge rusher in Myles Garrett. I understand that Myles Garrett is probably light years better than a guy like Darrell Taylor, but to me, Darrell Taylor is a year younger. He is obviously cheaper than a guy like Myles Garrett. And if he is also being a productive piece of this defensive line alongside Montez Sweat, there's no need to give up 2 first-round picks to go get a guy like Myles Garrett. Once again, Bears fans, I don't think this is going to happen. This is basically just hypothetical. Once again, Jeff Hughes of the Bears blog was on X just talking about it, just maybe making some hints. If the Cleveland Browns season kind of goes out of control after the blowout loss to the Dallas Cowboys, and obviously they're kind of in cap hell as well, in a very bad contract situation with Deshaun Watson. Ever since Deshaun Watson has been the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, it just hasn't really been working out for the Browns. So that's why he brought up the scenario that if things continue to go downhill for the Browns, it may be smart for them to look to possibly trade a guy like Myles Garrett to basically just get the rebuild started and just get that roster reset moving forward for the Cleveland Browns. So overall, Bears fans, I personally don't think it's going to happen. As always, I would love to have a guy like Myles Garrett on the Chicago Bears roster, but the Bears do have other needs on the roster. They already have a guy in Darrell Taylor that's playing really good football, and I think he will continue to provide a massive impact for the Chicago Bears defensive line. And I don't think that Ryan Poles is going to want to give up 2 first-round picks for a 28-year-old edge rusher in Myles Garrett. But all in all, Bears fans, I just wanted to come on here really quick because I thought it was a pretty fun conversation to have. Once again, whenever you're talking about a reigning defensive player of the year possibly being available for the Chicago Bears, and I do know that Ryan Poles was in the market for Matthew Judon. I believe that he possibly was maybe talking about Hassan Reddick as well. I do know that he was interested in adding edge rushers, but that was obviously before we got a guy like Darrell Taylor. So I think Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears are content at the moment. But Bears fans, before I let you guys go, let me ask you guys this. If Myles Garrett was actually available via trade from the Cleveland Browns, and if you were the general manager of the Chicago Bears, would you pursue a trade and bring Myles Garrett to the Chicago Bears? Let me know down below in the comment section. But as always, make sure you continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Geek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, be back for all new Bears podcasts right here on Geek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic.